Welcome everybody to YSS Let's Talk. It's Thursday evening with our weekly series of informative topics that we're going to present regarding YSS services and all the peripheral services that surround what we do here at YSS. I am David Hicks, Director of Community Engagement for YSS of Marshall County. My role here is to work with not only the staff, but the community at large in Marshalltown to not only promote our services, but to expand our services, expand our footprint in the community and throughout central Iowa. This is my 25th year here at YSS, and no doubt Let's Talk is one of the most innovative things that we've had during this 25 years. So we're excited to have you here. We're going to talk a lot about the topic tonight, which is Child Access and Visitation Program, CAVP for short, and really in the human service world, there's so many acronyms that it's much like a foreign language. So if you see CAVP, that is Child Access and Visitation Program. So tonight, if you have any questions about Child Access and Visitation Program or YSS in general, you can put that in the comment section. We'll try and respond to those as best as we can. We're going to talk a lot tonight about family dynamics. But first, we want to talk about maybe the history of Child Access and Visitation Program, which we'll get to in a minute. But we have some guests with us tonight. I'm going to throw it over to Misty Smith. She will introduce herself, talk a little bit about her role, and then we will introduce Norma. So welcome, Norma and Misty. Misty, I'll throw it over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, David. My name is Misty Smith, as David had said, and I do the supervised visitation piece. So I actually supervise the clients that come in that need the supervision. I'm also a mental health counselor. So yeah, I've been doing it for about 6 years now for child access visitation, and so it's been a fun ride, a good journey. I'm excited to talk about it and kind of get the word out there for everyone to learn.
Thank you, Misty. Norma?
Hi, everyone. My name is Norma Mead. I'm an attorney. I work in Marshalltown, a firm. And one of the areas of practice that I enjoy is working in the family law area. And one part of that is helping my clients to get custody agreements in place and to get visitation arrangements in place so that they can hopefully raise their children the way they want to, and both parents can be involved with their children's lives. And so my job is to help my client to get that paperwork in place, the order that will tell the parents who's going to be the custodial parent, what kind of visitation the non-custodial parent will have with the children, and to help them to implement that plan and maybe give them advice along the way so that they can try to figure out what is the best plan for their children. I could go on and on about this if you want me to. Most of the time, I would say people do work out agreements about custody and visitation and what's going to work best for their family. But sometimes that isn't possible. And when people can't come to agreements, then they're going to look to the court to decide the issues that they can't decide between the two of them. So the court, when they're trying to fashion the best custody order, has a number of factors that they look at, and the pole star is the best interest of the child.
Definitely. And Norma's been a longtime community advocate, not only for children and families here in Marshalltown, but with YSS. Just a great partner to have in the community, great resource for our staff and for our clients. So Norma, I appreciate all of your legal expertise you provided YSS of Marshall County when we were working on buying this building that we're in, and you've been a great advocate for some of the kids we've worked with. So definitely much appreciated.
Thank you.
You talked a little bit about the legal dynamics going into Child Access and Visitation Program. So a history lesson, Child Access and Visitation Program has been part of YSS of Marshall County for close to 24, 25 years. It was one of the first programs that I had as a new employee. It is funded by the administration for children and families through DHS, through the Office of Child Support Enforcement. So the overall goal is, as the funders see it, is that parents will have fair and equal access to their children, especially the non-custodial parent. And number two, they would be more apt to stay current on their child support payments that they're required to pay. And so if they were having visitation, then they're going to be more apt to stay current with those payments. So they're trying to meet those two milestones. So with Child Access and Visitation Program, I'm going to turn it over to Misty. What is Child Access and Visitation Program? What does that program do for YSS?
So the benefits of the Child Access and Visitation Program really comes, again, for the parents that are not able to come to an agreement when they're making the decision of who. It's really sometimes comes to like the safety of the child. If courts don't feel a parent is safe, sometimes we do supervised visits for an extended period of time until modification of the court order is made. My ultimate goal is to ensure the safety of the child, but also work on helping the relationship and the dynamic of the relationship between the non-custodial parent and the children involved. Sometimes it looks like trying to mediate some of the communication between parents, and how do we work on being able to learn ways to co-parent and not use kids as pawns, but to find a middle ground and to really love your child more than you hate each other sometimes. And that's sometimes the difficult piece is you have parents that have so much resentment towards one another that they forget they have this innocent child that has nothing to do with each other's issues. There's a wide range of reasons why people get referred to us. Sometimes it is court order referrals, sometimes it's personal referrals, and I've probably 95% or more court ordered. It is really nice when there's a step program to the court order instead of like an indefinite. Some people think that visitations are forever, and they're not. To be honest, visitations is the start of a beginning to an end. And so we try to facilitate what does that look like, and how do we get to that point where modification can be made for the safety of the children as well for the relationship of the parent and the child. Been doing this, like I said, for about 6 years now. Only had a couple of difficult cases and some really amazing ones that have been able to move forward. Sorry.
Yeah. And I definitely agree with what you said as far as a beginning to an end. And when we talk about visitation, that is non-DHS or non-system involved families. If there's been founded abuse or neglect and there's visitation that's required, that goes through the Department of Human Services. These would be through divorce, or a person may be coming out of an incarceration scenario where there may be some unfamiliarity or a long period of time between their last visit. So the service you can provide is the neutral exchange. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that neutral exchange is?
So a lot of time when it comes to the neutral exchange, we could meet in a medium ground, or they could drop the child off and I can give the child over to other parents. A lot of the times we try to help parents figure out a way that they can do that without needing YSS. For the neutral exchange piece, a lot of the times it's if there's a no contact order, I usually have a parent drop the child off a few minutes before the other parent comes until they're able to figure out that no contact order and how to kind of reconcile. Yes.
Yeah. And that gets really tricky. Norma, kind of turning it over to you. How do you, and you may have touched on this a little bit, but how do you kind of determine, or how do the courts determine when there would be a neutral exchange required or a visitation component with your clients?
Well, when I'm talking to my clients, we're definitely talking about a lot of things, their relationships with each other, the trust they have in each other, whether each of them have been caretakers of the children before. We want to just make sure that that visitation plan that we form is going to be in the best interest of the child, that the child's going to be safe. And when it's a situation where my client doesn't believe the child can be safe with the other parent, that's when I start really thinking about supervised visits. And that's when I start thinking about YSS, because sometimes there are not family members that are neutral or that can help the family to supervise visits. I always try to talk with my client about family members and whether there's anyone around that could act as a supervisor of the visitation. But sometimes parents can't agree on someone to supervise. And that's when YSS can be really valuable, because they're seen as more neutral, objective. They don't have baggage, from the past situations that have occurred. So, and they're considered to be kind of experts in the area of supervising. And it's really nice when you're trying to gauge how visitation is going. In the cases where I've had clients that have used YSS, we get really nice reports from Misty or whoever is supervising the visits that tell us how the visits are going, how the child acts during the visits, so that the custodial parent can start to feel more at ease about the visits. And that those reports can be really helpful. We can also use them in court if, let's say, those visits are not progressing and the child is not feeling comfortable, they're not getting better, the child's fearful, or maybe the parent comes to the visit and he's inebriated. All kinds of things can happen, but at least you'll find out and get that feedback about the visits and how they're occurring, and that can really help you to get to that next step. Like Misty said, we're not wanting to have supervised visits forever. We're hoping that with time, it'll start feeling more natural, and maybe the child will be more happy being with the parent and can feel comfortable, and then the visits can go on to another format. But typically when I'm asking the court to order supervised visits, it's because my client feels like there's some risk to the child that they want to make sure is negated. So that's when I start looking to YSS.
And this is certainly one of those niche programs that not everyone does it. So the grant that we have, we're one of only 2 in the state that has this grant. So we provide this service at no cost to the client. So the other agency that does it, I think, is outside of Des Moines. So we cover Marshall and Story with this grant. Jerry Durner covers this program in that Story County area and has several families she works with there. So not only is it here in Marshalltown, but Story County as well. So we're very fortunate that we have not only Misty on board, but Jerry as well, handling that Ames area. And you're right, this program's kind of a means to an end, because we can't supervise a kid from 0 to 18 or, just a long period that's not appropriate. So the first visit we have, I think we have to start looking at how is this going to discharge down the road. We just can't keep holding the parent's hand this whole time. So it's a very volatile program, and Misty alluded to it earlier. Sometimes you have parents who are very angry and use their children as pawns, so to speak. And it always kind of takes me back to that old adage, when the elephants fight, only the ants suffer. So we're here to really advocate for the ants. So part of the supervised visit and neutral exchange is kind of doing some mediation. So Misty, how do you get a referral? And is mediation sometimes the first thing you do with that new referral?
Well, it all kind of depends. A lot of the times the referrals, again, kind of come in, whether it's a self-referral or court referral. I always ask for court documents, because I want to see what is it the courts are wanting and what are the expectations before even really going into it. A lot of the times I definitely talk with, I guess I do a semi-mediation, because I always talk with both parents. And I've had calls where, one parent, like you said, Norma, are just not comfortable, feel safe and uncomfortable. So my job is to ensure that I'm going to do my best to keep their child safe, to ensure that if there was anything, like you said, if a client comes in inebriated, I'm going to end the visit immediately. It's not going to take place. And I let both parents know that right off the bat. It's so a lot of, yes, mediation, like I do a little bit of mediation when it comes into it. I've had some clients where I've done visits for a little bit, and then we do sit down and kind of mediate and figure out, where do we go from here? How do you guys kind of move forward from this point? Because sometimes you get to the point where it's just stagnant. It works, it's consistent, and they don't want change. But then it's my job to say, I got to push you for change. We got to figure something out. And if it comes to the point where you don't feel comfortable with the parent, then I always I need you to contact your attorney. I never try to give legal advice because that's not in my scope. And so if they ask me questions when it comes to legal stuff, I said, I really encourage you to contact your attorney. I've actually had parents say, that's not your job, but it is. Like, my job isn't to give legal advice. My job is to say, you may need to contact an attorney and move forward in that direction. There's been some cases where it's been really easy and moving forward, and no big deals or anything like that. But those are nice to see. I've had some that, out in public, I happen to see them and be like, in my head, I know, but I never say anything. But I get that smile, like, I got to see the flower from the seed that we planted bloom. Like, there's still success there, which is really amazing to see that. And then you have those tough cases where you don't get to, and that does make it tough sometimes. But I say that the rewards are definitely amazing to see. So
yeah, and I think even this past week, I think we had somebody come in and say, I need 3 supervised visits because the court says so, then I can have unsupervised visit with my kids. So we may have a short-term visit, or we may have a much longer-term visit where the court really needs a long time to have those eyes and ears going on the case.
Yep.
And you're right, Misty, this is a very challenging position. And so I respect the work you do, and respect the work Jerry does too, because it's not treatment, it's not therapy, there's not so much counseling involved, but we're kind of dealing with kind of some prevention, child welfare issues to make sure things are going okay. So we navigate this very closely. Norma, how has this program assisted your clients in your firm?
Well, I've been working here for about 22 years, and I think you said this program's been in place for 24 or 25 years. So I've been really lucky that the entire time I've been practicing, I've had YSS available as a resource. I didn't realize that till tonight, but it really has been here for me. And if it weren't here, I think there'd be some non-custodial parents who would not be giving visits because the court wouldn't be able to ensure that the children would be safe. So the program really maximizes visitation for non-custodial parents. And I think it also, it might result in some children being placed in unsafe situations if the parents were to be given unsupervised visits and the parent couldn't be safe with them for whatever reason. So I guess we've been really lucky in our firm to always have YSS around to do that for our clients when needed.
Yeah. I have a quick question. Do you think that if it wasn't for the supervised visits to kind of mediate that middle ground, and like you were saying, like some parents may not have the supervised visits, or if YSS wasn't able, or there are other companies out there that weren't able to do the mediations and the visitations, that some parents would have rights terminated?
Well, I don't know that it would be terminated, but I could imagine that it might be, that burden would be placed on family members to maybe supervise visits when they're not comfortable doing that, but they would do it because that's my grandchild or that's my niece, and I want to make sure that they have some supervision. I don't really know if I'm in a great position to do anything. Should it be unsafe, but at least it's better than having nobody supervise. So I think it can put family members in an awkward position. And then I think non-custodial parents could really be in an awkward position too. They don't want to have their visits supervised by their ex-spouse or ex-girlfriend, whatever the situation was. It's just not a good environment for the child to be supervised by the custodial parent. So I suppose if YSS weren't around to do that supervision, that the burden would be on the custodial parent or their family to do the supervision. Or maybe, I think it could be the case that a court might not give visitation to that parent. Right now, the court likes to give visitation to parents, and because we always have supervised visitation as an option, that the parent always gets some visitation. But I'm not even quite sure what we would do if YSS were not an option.
Sure. And I know Misty has received some families coming in and court orders, and some of the court orders are pretty strict, because if you're having visitation, obviously you want your child on Christmas, you want them on their birthday, you want them on Father's Day, you want them on Mother's Day. So visitations have to occur, and that means Misty or Jerry are having to work some very odd hours, weekends. I mean, you don't pull them out of school to do visitations. This is after school work. This is weekend work. This is holiday work. Families don't stop being families. So it's really important that, part of the goal is having both parents active in their child's life. It can't always hinge on, well, we can't do this day, can't do that day. But we have to find a happy medium that within the court order, we can meet that, but within the standards of what Misty and Jerry are able to do. Because sometimes we get crazy visitations, like they get them every Saturday from 9 to 5, supervised. It's like, we can't do that. So then we have to kind of go back to the court to get that modified to make it somewhat doable. But of course, they want to see their kids on Christmas and their birthday. So it's a very unique program.
When we do get referrals like that, a lot of the times I just simply visit with the parents and let them know that unfortunately those hours aren't available, but we would be able to do. I do try to do more than an hour visit. I usually try to do at least 2 hours. That kind of helps be able to develop that relationship. Just because an hour just doesn't seem long enough.
Right.
And so a lot of the times it's, 2 to 3 hours is a typical visit that I usually try to supervise. There's been cases where we've had kids come in and they're uncomfortable and they'll be like, do you want to play Uno with me? Like, yeah. So, I'll get down. I get right in it and we'll play. And so that's sometimes if I have kiddos that I know feel uncomfortable, like I will get into the game and play with them and just kind of do that a few times. And then before you know it, like, I'm kind of sitting in the back seat again, and their parents and children are doing their thing. And so for me, it's really about being able to develop that reunification of the relationship and helping.
You're the icebreaker, it sounds like, kind of.
I try to be.
Yeah.
I love it when I don't have to be. Like, I do have some families that are just like, they know who their parents are and they're good with it. But then there are other cases where it's like, it's been a while. How do we kind of navigate this? And my ultimate goal is to ensure that parents know that this is their time with their kids. And so they need to make sure they're meeting the needs of their children. So if it's during supper time, I'm letting them know, like, by the way, it's during supper time, make sure you meet the needs. What are the needs if they were not? If we weren't doing this, just you say taking them home, you have to feed them, like you have to meet their needs. And so, if we have a baby involved, make sure you're bringing diapers and make sure that, you have everything that you need to make sure your child's needs are being met while they're with you during this time. And I know referrals have really kind of grown a lot. I don't know if it's because I've had to go to court a couple times, and we've actually had someone come over from a different county and they didn't even know that this was a service that was being provided. And so when I was like, oh yeah, and it's in Story County, all of a sudden it seemed like it blew up. And I'm so glad. And I agree with Jerry, like, this is definitely a program that is needed and I enjoy doing it. I think I'll probably hold on to it for a little while, even though I kind of balance a few different positions, but I love the feeling of seeing success, and that's a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is really a critical time with this grant. We've had this grant 2 years. The grant ends June 30th. So the application to try and renew that grant came out late last week. So it's up for bid. So there's agencies all over the state who can bid on this grant. Of course, we've had it multiple years and we've done a great job with it. But again, it's competitive. We'll do the best we can with this grant, but I'm sure there's other agencies who are thinking, I bet you we could provide this service too. So we'll have to develop a budget, determine what the outcomes are going to be. And it's usually, you know, we want 85% of the children having quality time with their parents, a certain number of visitation counseling sessions to happen before and then during the visits. And then while we don't measure or have anything to do with child support, we just want to make sure that child safety and child well-being is being met through the eyes and ears of Misty here in Marshalltown and Jerry in Story County. So we need community partners like Norma to support this, as we'll have to have letters of support, provide all the documentation for a competitive grant. And so we hope to win the grant back, but you know, everything's competitive these days. So we'll certainly do the best we can. What are some, Misty and Norma, what are some barriers that you've kind of seen either on the legal side or the visitation side of a visit being successful?
Not having the step down program, not having some type of step down or direction as to how many visits are needed before we move on to something different. If you just have a court order that says supervised visit needs to take place on Tuesdays and Thursdays from this time to this time, but no real set ending or another court hearing, like that for me is probably one of the biggest barriers, just because again, it's a beginning to an end. And so I really, when I have those clients come in, I talk to the non-custodial parent and say, so what is your plan of action and what do you hope to do? And, you know, within 6 months to a year, are you able to go back and try to have this modified? Is that something that's possible? Because again, I really try to reiterate the importance of, like, this is the beginning to an end, and we want to see this progress and move forward. I mean,
that can be really tricky from a drafting perspective, because really you don't know how long the supervised visits need to continue. You don't know how well they're going to go. For example, I'm working with a case right now that's likely to end with supervised visits being ordered, but the non-custodial parent is a severe alcoholic, and he's had a long-term problem with alcohol for probably more than 10 years. And he doesn't know his child very well. And so I'm not even sure if he'll show up for the visits. So putting an end date on that supervised visitation time is going to be tricky. I totally understand where you're coming from, though, because you don't want this to be forever. And I'd like it not to be forever either, but at the same time, I want it to be for long enough that the child is not going to be endangered, because she's a young little girl, and she needs to be safe. She's, I think, roughly 4 or 5 years old. So It's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but I'm going to keep your comments in mind when I'm trying to figure out a solution.
Sure. We do have a question from Rusty. Can people, even community folks, volunteer to help with visits? Not in this circumstance, because we are grant funded. That requires a certain level of degree and experience that the employee has to fulfill that visit. And it takes some special skills, because Misty's gone to some mediation training that's above just a general sort of level of mediation resolution. So even though we would love to have community folks come in and help, there's just a level of expertise. There's a certain level of risk involved. And while we love volunteers and we utilize volunteers, this is probably one area that we would just not be able to utilize them as much as we would like to. There's certainly a lot on the line, especially when it's court related. And those involved in court proceedings need to know that the people doing the visits are well trained and well skilled and employed with an organization with insurance and things like that. Didn't know if there's anybody else who had questions. We certainly have some great comments. Appreciate Jerry Durner's work. Sam Fox gave you a shout out, Misty. Thomas Berry, thank you for supporting us. we're just appreciative that we can provide this niche service because we're only one of two in the state, like I said, who provide this for free. If we charged an hourly rate, it would be a ridiculous amount that's really out of the range of what most people could afford. And that's just the price of doing business. We're a nonprofit, but we have a certain amount of dollars that we have to charge to meet our expenses. And I think that's only fair. So if we didn't have this grant, families would certainly have to pay. And we just don't want to put the burden back on folks who are maybe already stressed financially that we don't have to. So
another thing I think is important too is when I'm doing child access visits, a lot of the times we start off in the office and then we work on being able to maybe go to the park, go to the walk, kind of really get things moving forward, kind of establishing that. And in my paperwork that I report back, it says, what is the child's environment like? And so once I feel comfortable enough, and if they have a place they can go, say to a mom's home or a dad's home, I will transport to the home. So then I can also see, what does that environment look like? Is it safe? Is it a place for them to be able to, do they have enough room to be? And so I don't know, I feel like that's really important. But then when I take it back to the court, I mean, I have gone to court proceedings before and have had to kind of give my report verbally and be able to report on what is the environment like, what does it look like, and it kind of allows for a natural setting of parenting and childrenish to take place. You get to kind of see, what does that look like.
Yeah, you are the eyes and ears of the court, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I didn't know that you did that, Misty. That's interesting to me. I just assumed it took place at the YSS office. Those visits.
And I visit with both parents before any of it takes place. And I do have things like, I'm not ready for that. Once they feel comfortable and they're like, okay, I feel like it's okay. Just like I've had one that I've done, oh my goodness, probably 4 or 5 months now. And I just got clarification from the custodial parent that they're starting to feel comfortable and they're wanting to talk about it and they're excited about the visit to take place. And now we're ready. Maybe they can go on walks and stuff. So I'm super excited for the next one because we'll probably go on a walk or something. Like, it's those little things. And when I hear that, like, I just get giddy. I'm like, ooh, I'm the one that will like run and jump on the bed because I'm so excited that things are making movement and progress, which is huge. So. And yeah, I love working with Jerry. She's been amazing. And I know that she's getting full over there. So,
and if folks out there want to donate to YSS or to support this project, we've got a family visitation room here in the YSS office. We've got a TV. We've got Disney Channel that was donated. So that's always on. But if you're wanting to donate games, Legos, what else, Misty? What could people donate to help with visitations with families?
Different types of board games, things like that. I think I'm going to try to bring in my old Wii system because that allows for family interaction and both like people to be able to kind of engage and participate and be interactive with one another. It's more than just sitting there and looking at each other like, what do we do? Again, I also bring some of my, let's play Uno, let's do this. I bring the stuff in because I really feel like it's part of, that's how we kind of start breaking, like I said, the icebreaker type piece. How do we start breaking the uncomfortability and make it more comfortable?
Yeah, Jerry says Connect 4, paper and markers, all that creative stuff. So it's been a great discussion tonight. Misty, Norma, any last comments before we kind of segue out of this?
I'm just really happy that we have YSS to provide this service. It really is very valuable to many of my clients, and hopefully we'll get that grant and get the funding that's required to keep it going.
Definitely fingers crossed for that. So thank you both for being here tonight. Don't forget about next week's Let's Talk and just a little bit of a tease about that. It's about alcohol being used as a scapegoat for sexual assault. So this is in reference to a sexual assault at Stanford University that dominated the news cycle back in 2016. The perpetrator, among others, pointed to alcohol as an excuse for his actions. However, alcohol can be a factor in sexual assault. It is often maliciously used in a way to redirect blame onto victims rather than recognizing the perpetrator's use of the substance as a tool to reduce their target's ability to make decisions. So tune in next week for Let's Talk. Misty Smith, Norma Mead, thank you for what you do for YSS. Child Access wouldn't be what it is without the support and work that you both provide. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.